let's continue this conversation about the goings-on at the weekend. Where were we? So we're discussing, actually, the goings-on in terms of where was the peace. And I guess what I'm trying to get to is, was Suella Braverman right?
Well, she wanted the Palestinian march disallowed, right? And Mark Rowley said, you know, all my intelligence says that there is not going to be trouble on that march. Now, whatever Ben says, it was the same sort of march, as far as I can gather, as they've always been. That there wasn't trouble in the way that there weren't fights, there wasn't violence. I take it...
It did come later. There was violence later in the day.
Hold on a second. There wasn't fights, there wasn't violence, but there were just random people casually endorsing terrorism and terror groups. Well, there was, and I'm going to start playing...
And there was violence at the end of the day. There was violence at the end of the day.
We'll bring up some of the footage.
But what I mean, actually, the reason...
Why do you dismiss that, by the way? Because I think that is a really... When I say then, you're saying there's not fighting, there's not violence, and I say, oh, no, there's just casual displays of people agreeing with a terrorist organisation. And you kind of go, ugh, as though that's because
I actually think most of them... I mean, I know people who go on those marches, and I know people, you know... I mean,
I didn't say it was all of them.
Who are in central London.
There's a minority
there is a minority,
terrorism.
and I think that anybody who thinks anything positive about Hamas is completely and utterly
look
mad.
Look at this fellow on the screen now. He's saying Hamas is ISIS. You want to see it, guys? He gets swarmed around. He gets, you know, a very, very hostile and aggressive reaction, I would say. He's just basically saying that Hamas are terrorists.
Right. I mean, and Hamas are terrorists. I mean, and the whole problem with what's going on in Gaza, right, is that what the Israelis are doing is they're doing exactly what Hamas wants. What Hamas wants is for the Israelis to kill lots of Palestinians, right? And then it will completely and utterly wreck any sort of peace in the region. That's what this is all about.
If you'd said that on that march, you would have been in physical danger. I can tell you that.
Can I just clarify a double standard? Because I don't mean to be rude, but I do feel like there is a little bit of a double standard going on here. Because when I mentioned to you then the pro-Palestinian marches, and I'm saying to you, there was casual endorsement, well, it wasn't that casual, actually, it was quite scary, out-and-out endorsement and support of a terrorist organisation, you immediately dismiss that and say, well, that was a minority. 2 minutes ago, when you're talking about the collective that some people are calling counter-protesters, whatever, you will say to me that they were all violent, so you don't select the minority.
They were all violent. What I said was, listening to Ben, I would not have known that 9 police officers were injured by people at the cenotaph. I mean, I think
which no one would condone, by the way, but you, I saw Tommy Robinson tweeting you earlier on, I think it was yesterday or today, he was tweeting a clip of you where you'd said that he had been chucking missiles at police officers.
No, I said Tommy Robinson's people, and I did get called scum, which is really nice. So that's great. I mean, it's just what one wants.
Well, just to be clear, Scarlett is not scum. I don't agree with that. But you're not scum.
And I certainly didn't accuse you of doing it.
No, but then the problem that people have got, Scarlett, it's really important, is that when people generalise and they will say those protesters, like, look at those far-right protesters, they're doing this, they're doing that. They were pushing police officers. I don't support that behaviour. But then they were kettled in the first place.
They were. We were kettled in.
No, hold on. And when the left gets kettled, no, you go, well, that's the problem of being on that march. I mean...
Well, I'm just saying the march wasn't kettled. The march had full...
No, but there have been masses of marches where people have been kettled, and people have been kettled, people like you, people who were never on the march but were in the wrong place at the wrong time. What I'm saying is, of course, anybody who supports Hamas, right, I am completely and utterly condemning, because I mean, you know, you don't have to have any brains at all to say that what Hamas did was awful, but also what Hamas wanted, which is what's going on in Gaza at the moment, is appalling. But what I'm saying is that if you had watched GB News or listened to Ben, you would not know that there were missiles thrown at the cenotaph.
Well, I can tell you what, if you'd have listened to Channel 4 News, did you see what they tweeted out? They put a tweet, and I'm going to get it up for you. They had to hastily delete it, by the way. Let me just bring this tweet up, because I think it's a very important part. It just shows you, if you ask me, how some of the mainstream media do behave. They said, after being branded hate marches by the Home Secretary, a massive pro-Palestinian protest passed off peacefully, with hundreds of thousands in attendance. The only scuffles on the day involved far-right protesters who clashed with the police. That wasn't true, so they hastily deleted it.
And that was the same message from Sky and BBC all afternoon. I was absolutely tearing my hair out. Suella Braverman shouldn't have been sacked, and she was right. Suella said, if this march goes ahead, there will be scuffles with the police, there'll be two-tier policing, and there will be violence. And that's exactly what happened. If the anti-Israeli march hadn't taken place, you wouldn't have had any of this on Saturday. And it's a tragedy, really. And the next day, when, of course, there were no protests, we had a solemn, poignant commemoration of those people who died for us, to give us the freedoms that we now all enjoy and that, in my view, was taken advantage of by these anti-Israeli marchers on Saturday.
Those people, by the way, because it was very widely shared, that footage of those people trying to push past that kettle to get to the cenotaph. I just do want to make the point that they did get closer to the cenotaph, and once there, they did behave in a respectful manner. They did quietly observe, respectfully, that 2-minute march. I have to say, though, I did also see people covering their faces in that crowd as well with balaclavas and stuff. That is just disgusting.
That's
not
disgusting.
appropriate.
And it's really important to say that the British Legion felt that the Palestinian march should go ahead, right? They said yes. And actually...
Let's ask about Suella then. Do you think she should have been given the boot?
Yeah, the thing about Suella is she's not a team player. I mean, it's really, really simple. What Suella did was that she deliberately went out and was not part of cabinet responsibility. She put an article in the Times that she refused to change. I mean, when I was on Jacob Rees-Mogg's show, he said that he disagreed with something in cabinet. It was changing the law around ID for voting and saying you had to have photo ID. He totally disagreed with it. He stuck up for it the whole time he was in cabinet, and only when he left the cabinet did he say that he thought it was a form of gerrymandering. And I think Jacob was right, actually, that if you're in cabinet, I was thinking...
But Scarlett, the only bit of the letter on which she was asked by Number 10 to make a variation was where she compared the march to what used to happen in Northern Ireland. That was the only bit.
Well, why didn't she take it out? It was really offensive to people in Ireland.
Yeah, but it didn't have any impact whatsoever on the outcome of Saturday.
But the point is that what she showed was how weak Rishi Sunak was. Right?
Well, he is weak. He is weak. That's why he sacked her.
No, I mean, he had to. He had to say...
No, but Scarlett, there was another route. He could have said, I endorse my Home Secretary. I want to...
He kept on endorsing
I want to back her.
What she said about Ireland was disgraceful.
It's ambiguous.
It was not.
I'm the biggest proponent of Northern Ireland. You can't have a bigger proponent of Northern Ireland than I am.
Well, I don't know what a proponent of Northern Ireland is.
A supporter of Northern Ireland.
Yes, but there's a lot of different voices in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, but she was the
and
ostensibly...
what she said, and I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I was with another television presenter who was Irish from the Republic. He was deeply offended, and I said, no, she's clarified she didn't mean the orange marches, and he went, what, she just meant the Catholics. They all were furious in Northern Ireland.
Well, no one knows what she meant because it was ambiguous.
She said, she clarified actually afterwards. So what I'm saying is that if you're part of the cabinet, if you think of Gordon Brown and Tony Blair, we know, right, that Gordon Brown loathed Tony Blair. Never once did he publicly make it clear, right? And it was really, really important. If you're in the cabinet, you're part of a team.
Not once did Suella say she loathes Rishi Sunak. Not once. She was doing her job as Home Secretary. She's had both her hands tied, unable to do what she wishes to do with illegal migration, unable to do what she wishes to do with legal migration, and indeed with the two-tier policing that we've got. And while we're on two-tier policing, I want to just say that the fundamental problem in this country that we now face with multiculturalism is diversity, equality and inclusion. The training that all our police force get, our armed forces get, our health service gets, private enterprise, government agencies right across the UK are all drilled with DEI, which effectively is the promotion of minority interest against the majority. And the police feel they've got to actually be uneven because that's their regulatory obligation.
That is why an independent review of the police, commissioned by the police, said that they were the Metropolitan Police are institutionally racist and sexist, right? Because of their behaviour. Don't talk to me about the Metropolitan than being woke.
I do not accept that this country is institutionally racist in any organisation other than in one respect, and that is the promotion of ethnic minorities above and beyond and to the detriment of the indigenous people. That's how racism is now being practiced in this country, and that's why that anti-Israeli march was tolerated. It should never have happened, and if multiculturalism was working, those people would never have wished to have marched in the way that they did.
You know as well as I do that most people on that march were white. Right, it wasn't about, you know, we let the black people go. But there is a really serious thing that what happens in the Metropolitan Police, right, is the way they treat women and the way they treat black people is not good. It is not.
I don't buy it. I'm really sorry.
An independent review that Mark Rowley
An independent review done, no doubt, by a whole load of people who've been hijacked by exactly the same philosophy about which I'm complaining.
Dave Louise Casey, right, who was commissioned by Cressida Dick to do it.
Cressida Dick, exactly, had to resign.
Had to resign because of the racism and sexism in the Metropolitan Police. That's why she went. That's why she had to go, right, was because she was not keeping, she was not changing the culture, which was deeply racist and deeply sexist.
Let me tell you, and I say this as someone who's half ethnically Pakistani, the racism in this country is not against minority ethnic people like myself. It is against the indigenous white majority. Take it from me. I've seen it. I've seen it in practice.
I am indigenous and white, right?
And they will not hesitate to prejudice your position in this country because they're regulated to do so.
Oh,
it's a fact.
Absolute rubbish.
It's a fact.
Well, there you go. Scarlett says it's absolute rubbish that he's talking. What do you make to it all? Divided opinions as well about whether or not Suella Braverman was right to have been given the boot.